Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CEDH. Today we have another super sweet game that I recorded at the Royal Rumble. Granted, not during the tournament, but it was super fun to play, so I had to show it off. Also, make sure to check out the store as I have all the guild designs up, and I love how they came out, so you should definitely check them out. Starting us off is Hidden on Shorikai. This is a humility control deck looking to use artifact synergy along with Shorikai to draw a bunch of cards, wrath the board, and ultimately win with a dramatic scepter or a hullbreaker horror. Next up is Drew from the Magda Discord, and you wouldn't have guessed it, but he's on Magda today. This is Mighty Morphin Dwarves, aiming for lots of treasure and an instant speed tunable win con. In the third spot is Liam, known as Harvey Caveman Online on Wernog Bjorna. This is a Friends Forever partner pairing, which is a mid-range deck trying to accumulate advantage before comboing off with Wernog. And bringing up the rear is Mike on Kinnan, and what can I say that you don't already know? Kinnan makes way too much mana, lets you sit back on Kinnan activations for big dumb boys, and has the ever-looming threat of just combo killing the table out.
Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board.
Hidden starts off the game with an island and passes. Drew has a mountain into a Mox Opal, ending his turn with a Bloodfire Dwarf. Liam plays out a Marsh Flats and also passes. Mike plays and cracks a Flooded Strand for a Tropical Island, following that up with a Mox Diamond. He discards the Yavimaya Coast, giving him a turn 1 Kinnan. Hidden plays out a Prismatic Vista, cracking the fetch for basic planes, tapping out to cast an Azorius Signet. Drew plays another mountain and casts his commander Magda. He then heads straight to combat, swinging the Bloodfire Dwarf at Liam, generating his first treasure of the game. With Liam at end step, cracking his Marsh Flats for an Undercity Sewers, using your Surveil trigger to keep the card on top. Liam then untaps and casts an inactive Mox Opal. He has a Manamo as land for turn, and for 2 plays out a Talisman of Dominance. Mike plays out a Polluted Delta, and thanks to Kinnan, casts a Manglehorn, who on ETB destroys the Mox Opal. Hidden plays out a Mistgate Pathway, and is very happy the Manglehorn didn't touch his rocks, as he casts his commander Shorikai, which will enter tapped from said Manglehorn, with Mike at end step cracking his fetch for an untapped Breeding Pool. Drew plays out a mountain, and for 3 casts a Jeska's Will, targeting Hidden. He'll gain 5 red and exile an Ancient Tomb, Magus of the Moon, and a Mirror of the Forebears. He'll start off by casting the Magus of the Moon. There are no responses, as he then follows it up with the Mirror. But Mike knows how powerful that artifact can be, and counters it with a Force of Will, exiling a Glenalendra. Drew then proceeds to combat, swinging both Magda and the Bloodfire Dwarf at Liam, generating 2 tapped treasures and dealing 4. Liam plays out a tapped Soul Ring and attempts to cast a Rhystic Study, with Hidden quickly saying no to that with a Force of Will of his own, pitching a mana drain. Mike plays out a Birds of Paradise and ends his turn swinging 4 at Hidden. Hidden untaps and casts a Pithing Needle. And while I don't show all of it, there was quite the show happening, as both Mike and Drew made arguments on which it should name, with Drew ultimately sealing the deal as he agrees to have his first Magda activation be Portal to Phyrexia to clear away Mike's board, as Hidden names Kinnan off the needle. Drew then heads to his turn and uses 2 of his treasures and 4 mana to play a Cavern Horde Dragon. But it seems like this was too much value, as Hidden counters it with a delay, suspending the Cavern Horde for 3 turns. Drew then proceeds to combat, continuing to pressure Liam's life total with 4 more damage. Liam untaps, plays out a Wishclaw Talisman, and passes. Mike has a City of Brass and slams down a Nyxbloom Ancient. But it looks like Hidden is the fun police today, as he gets to counter the enchantment creature with a Swan Song. Hidden untaps, draws, but unfortunately misses his land drop, and with only 2 cards left in hand, passes the turn. Drew plays out another mountain, and for 4 casts a Maskwood Nexus. He He then heads to combat, continuing his beatdown of Liam. Drew will gain his treasure off the attack, but now with an active Magda, we actually forget to mark damage, as we are discussing when's the best time to activate Magda to get portal. Liam untaps, and knowing the portal is basically coming, just passes, with Drew on end step activating Magda. However, Liam responds by activating his Wish Claw to find a card to hand and then cast an opposition agent. Liam then passes the talisman to Hidden, and at this point we correct Liam's life total. But with the oppo still on the stack, Hidden activates Shorikai, drawing 2, discarding a copy artifact, and making a 1/1 pilot. But he sure was happy he did activate Shorikai, as he then casts a long-term plans. He'll put a card third from the top as the opposition agent resolves and takes Magda's tutor, ultimately grabbing and casting a disruptor flute, naming Shorikai. Mike untaps, swings Kinnan at Hidden, and passes the turn. Unfortunately, now with the disruptor flute out, stopping him from using Shorikai, Hidden plays out an Auto-Arrow as land return. He then uses a Chain of Vapor on the oppo, with Liam sacrificing his Manamo to copy the chain and bounce Manglehorn, in a deal to get rid of Drew's Masswood Nexus. With Hidden then activating his Wish Claw to find a card and pass the talisman to Mike, ending his turn with a Vanquish the Horde to clear away the board of creatures. Drew spends his turn recasting Magda. Liam then heads to his turn and casts his Commander Bjorna as another safety measure against Magda. Mike is true to his word as he replays the Manglehorn and on ETB blows up the Maskwood Nexus. Hidden untaps, draws, and passes the turn again. Drew untaps, and while I haven't been mentioning it, removes the final time counter off his Cavern Horde Dragon. He then plays out an Urza Saga as land return and proceeds to combat, swinging the Cavern Horde at Liam. Drew generates 4 tap treasures on damage, with him on his second main casting a Liquid Metal Torque into an Agatha's Soul Cauldron, with Liam at end step recasting the opposition agent. Liam then for 4 casts Italian, the Kindly Lord, on 2, but passes it there. Mike plays out a Beseiju as land and recasts Kinnan, triggering Talion to lose him 2 and gain Liam a card. Hidden is unfortunately spent as he draws once again and has to pass the turn. Drew heads to his turn and he knows that player removal is the best kind of removal, as he continues with combat, knocking Liam down to 6, with Drew making a tap treasure off Magda and another 4 when his dragon connects. Liam on his turn then casts his other commander Wernog, who resolves, and on ETB the whole table agree to take a clue, with Liam getting 4 himself. With him discarding a Brain Freeze due to hand size, and technically at end step, Mike cracking his clue. Mike casts a Mox Opal, and then for 7 casts a Nezahal, Primal Tide, with Hidden in response cracking his own clue. With Mike then proceeding to combat and punching Shorikai for 4. Hidden untaps and finds a Time Twister off the top. Also, there's going to be a bunch of Nezahal triggers this turn. Mike will be drawing, but I'm not going to be announcing them unless they're actually relevant. With Drew in response casting a Ghostfire Slice targeting Bjorna. Liam will activate Bjorna, sacrificing a clue in an attempt to goad the Cavern Horde Dragon, but in response, Drew then casts a Flare of Duplication, attempting to copy the Ghostfire Slice. Knowing he wants to remove the oppo, Liam casts a Deflecting Swat, targeting the Flare of Duplication to change the target to Time Twister. He then puts 2 Time Twisters on the stack. There are no more responses as the first Time Twister resolves. Bjorna's damage will then resolve and goad the dragon, but with the Ghostfire still on the stack, Liam casts a Fierce Guardianship, with Drew responding by Galvanic Blasting the opposition agent. This time it's Mike to the rescue with a Swan Song, as the table knows if the oppo is gone, we just all lose. But still with all this on the stack, Drew then exiles a Dwarven Scorcher from hand to free cast a Pyrokinesis, targeting 2 damage at the oppo and 2 damage at the Manglehorn. But it's now up to Hidden as he casts a Flusterstorm. He has 10 copies, with 8 of them being on the Pyrokinesis and one of each on the Ghostfire Slice and a Galvanic Blast. But Drew has even more responses, as the Time Twister gave him back his Flare of Duplication, attempting to copy the Pyrokinesis. But the table is basically out of interaction, as Liam in a last-ditch effort casts a Valley Flood Caller into a Lion's Eye Diamond, trying to draw Mike more cards to stop the Pyrokinesis. And while this doesn't work, Hidden reveals he has a Pact of Negation to talk Drew into using his Pyro to take out the Valley Flood Caller instead of targeting the opposition agent. Drew ultimately agrees, as it's better than it just getting countered, as the stack begins to resolve, with the Flood Caller being taken out, and all of Drew's other spells being countered by the Fluster, with Liam's last response being to crack his LED for 3 white before the Time Twister resolves, and Drew then activating his Cauldron to exile said LED before the original Time Twister can shuffle it back in. The table then shuffle up and draw a fresh set of 7, with Hidden then casting a Lotus Petal and a Chrome Box, imprinting an Enlightened Tutor, which unfortunately both still enter tapped due to the Manglehorn. Hidden will pass it there, with Liam then using his floating white and an exiled Simian Spirit Guide to crack 2 clues. I guess the Time Twister though was kind to Drew, as he untaps and responding to the Urza's search trigger, once again casts a Ghostfire Slice, targeting the opposition agent. Mike draws off Nezahal and has a response, as he Force of Negations it, exiling a Mystic Remora. But who knew Magda was such a control deck, as Drew then responds with a Tybalt's Trickery. Mike draws and responds this time with a Fierce Guardianship on the Ghostfire Slice, with Drew really fighting for it, as he casts a Deflecting Swat to target the Fierce Guardianship. But I guess Drew wasn't the only person who redrew his cards, as Hidden casts a Pact of Negation, countering the Ghostfire Slice. The stack then resolves, with Liam snagging a Soul Ring out of Magda's deck, with the Urza Saga Tutor. Drew then plays out a Holdout Settlement as land return, and uses the land to tap Magda for a red and a treasure, casting a Professional Facebreaker. Drew then heads to combat, sending the goated Cavern Horde Dragon at Hidden, gaining 5 more treasures off the connect. With Drew on his second main, exiling cards off the top with his Professional Facebreaker. He finds a Simian Spirit Guide and a Sudden Shock, with 11 treasures still available. The table groan as they know they can't stop this one, as Drew uses 1 treasure and his Liquid Metal Torque to cast a Sudden Shock, targeting the opposition agent. And with the Oppo no more, Drew then activates Magda, with the only response being Hidden casting a Path to Exile, targeting Magda. Drew will activate Magda over top, and funnily enough, find that portal to Phyrexia, per their agreement earlier in the game. The sack trigger is then put on the stack, and unfortunately, Mike got a little turned around and accidentally passed priority instead of activating Nezahal, as everyone sacrifices 3 creatures. With everyone investigating, off Warnog's Leave the Battlefield trigger. Magda is then exiled back to the command zone, with Drew finding a mountain from his library, with the original Magda trigger finding a God Pharaoh statue, which drains everyone at the end step for 1. Liam untaps and has finally hit his lands, as he plays out an Exotic Orchard, spending 3 mana to play Drew's Soul Ring from exile, and discarding 4 lands due to hand size. Mike heads to his turn and activates the Given Wishclaw Talisman. He finds a card to hand and gives the spent talisman back to Liam, with Mike then casting a Chain of Vapor to return the God Pharaoh statue back to Drew's hand. And he then follows it up with a Gilded Drake to gain control of Drew's Cavern Horde Dragon, which is luckily still tapped, ending his turn with a Chrome Box imprinting a Tezzeret the Seeker. Hidden untaps and pays 5 mana to not lose the game. He has a Mana Confluence as land return and casts a Mystic Remora. Drew on his upkeep reanimates the Manglehorn with his portal in an attempt to blow up Mike's Chrome Box. Mike will float a blue, and along with an exiled Elvish Spirit Guide, single target a Psych Rift to bounce the Manglehorn back to his hand. Drew will then play out a mountain as land return and recast Magda, after being talked out of casting the God Pharaoh statue, as it would limit interaction against Mike. Drew then casts an adaptive automaton to get an artifact dwarf onto the battlefield and then heads to combat. He swings a gilded drake at Liam, putting him down to 1 life and hitting Mike for 2 with his facebreaker, using both treasures he gained to cast a torpor orb, with Liam at Ensep cracking both of his clues. Liam plays out a Badlands as land for turn and then casts his own Chrome Mox, imprinting a Tainted Pact but passing it there. Mike heads straight to combat, swinging the Cavern Horde Dragon at Liam to try and remove him from the game. But Liam responds by flashing in a Hullbreaker Horror, and then following that up with an Entomb. This lets him use the Hullbreaker Horror trigger to bounce his Cavern Horde Dragon to hand, saving him once again. With Mike in response casting a March of Swirling Mist, pitching an offer you can't refuse to phase out the Hullbreaker Horror and the Cavern Horde Dragon. Hidden will draw his cards off the Mystic Remora, with Liam bidding an Abdel into the graveyard off the Entomb. Michael then on his second main plays an Emergence Zone as land for turn, and ends his turn with a Felwar Stone into a Simic Signet. Hidden untaps and pays for fish. He's afraid that Drew is just going to win on his turn and cast a Vanquish the Horde to wipe the creatures of Drew's board again. Hidden then casts a Mana Vault and follows that up with an Arcane Signet, ending his turn with a Cephalid Coliseum as land for turn. Drew on his upkeep reanimates his Adaptive Automaton and then casts an Enslaved Dwarf, with the table convincing him that if Liam untaps with the Hullbreaker Horror, they are just gonna lose. And while he can't attack for lethal, his God Pharaoh statue can ping him on end step to take him out. Drew will cast it, but Liam responds with the Pact of Negation. Hidden draws off the fish and then fires off the saddest mana drain on the Pact of Negation, with Liam unfortunately not having anything else other than to go out on his own term, as he flusterstorms the mana drain, taking one off his own talisman to cast it, dropping his life to 0. But with that, Drew hands the turn over. Mike on his turn heads straight to combat, swinging the Cavern Horde at Hidden. Hidden will sacrifice his Lotus Petal to activate Shorikai, discarding an Arid Mesa, but will still generate Mike 7 treasures. And even with Kinnan costing 8 mana, Mike can still recast his commander, and then plays out a Gaia's Cradle as land for turn. Following that all up with a Basalt Monolith. This will net him infinite colorless, and with a followed up Thrasios from hand, he can draw his deck and win him the game.
Game review. Man, that game took forever. It was 2.5 hours long, but man, was it a blast. Spells were singing, deals were being made, and the entire time it felt like a Mexican standoff with guns being pointed every which way. And I really don't actually have much to add in the review. I think the ending was kind of inevitable, as I felt I needed to wrap the board to stop Drew, which in turn made him take out Liam to stop him from winning, which in turn gave Mike the opportunity to win after a bunch of other failed attempts. I do think one point I could have done better was when I long-term planned. I looked for a Wrath spell, and if I had just told Liam that, he wouldn't have Disruptor Fluted the Shorikai, and maybe that extra card advantage would have allowed me to stay more in control of the game. But regardless, it was a great game, and a great way to end the Royal Rumble for me. Thanks to everyone that joined for the game, and before everyone leaves, I want to thank our special Patreon members, Sly Fox and Holy Septic, for the support of the channel, along with all of our other Patreon supporters as well. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.